Oh, I would think so. I don't know why we wouldn't, but I guess we would, because in this league, you just never know. That would be the answer. Why wouldn't we? But yes, I would think we would. Adam Schefter joined us yesterday, dropping insights as only he can. Senior NFL insider, the voice you trust, the man with the sources. If there's a pulse in the NFL, he's got his finger on it. You missed it? No problem. The podcast is your answer. Back that thing up, hit play, run the volume up to max, and dive into what you might have missed. And speaking of what we haven't heard, where's Jerry? Yeah, that Jerry. Real quiet lately. Too quiet. Almost unsettling. Jerry Jones, the one-name brand of the NFL. Who else could we possibly be talking about? The man is a mononym, like Beyonce, like Madonna. Jera. That's right, Jera. But how many true one-name players exist in the league today? Saquon? That one sticks. Russ? That's a lock. Mahomes? No, we say Pat, or 15. Lamar? Definitely. Josh? No, we say Allen. Tua? That works. Trevor? Not quite. And yet, here we are, dissecting quarterback legacies and the ripple effect of their decisions as if it were chess on a board of billion-dollar franchises. The quarterback carousel never stops, and the dominoes continue to fall. Russell Wilson to the Giants. That's one more team off the free agent board, but they're still in play for the draft. The Browns could be lurking for a Kirk Cousins, but only if they don't go after a young QB. Maybe Shadur Sanders? Maybe not. And what about Pittsburgh? The Steelers, sitting back, seemingly waiting for one man, and one man only, Aaron Rodgers. Albert Breer, senior NFL reporter for MMQB, joined the discussion, providing a clue into Rodgers' mindset, and it might drive some people crazy. It sounds like Rodgers is looking for something familiar, what he had in Green Bay. 2 years with the Jets gave him a new appreciation for the structure, the culture, the stability of the Packers. The Steelers, in many ways, mirror Green Bay. The culture, the organizational philosophy, it's not the same as what the Jets tried to build overnight. But hold on. If Rodgers didn't like the way things were set up in New York, who exactly set that up? Who dictated the personnel moves? Who shaped the offense? That would be Rodgers himself. The Jets handed him the keys. He got his offensive coordinator. He got his guys, Randall Cobb, Alan Lazard, Nathaniel Hackett. He had full control. And the result? 5 wins in 2 years, a torn Achilles, and a franchise left in disarray. The Packers, by contrast, were all business. No distractions. No outside noise. Rodgers got to focus purely on football. And now, looking back, does he regret leaving? This brings us to a crucial point. If Rodgers truly misses Green Bay's structure, why isn't he already a Steeler? What team in the NFL resembles the Packers more than Pittsburgh? The Rooney family runs their organization like the Packers, a steady, hands-off ownership approach, allowing football minds to handle football decisions. If familiarity is what he's after, what's the holdup? And while we're on this QB saga, let's not overlook another potential suitor, the Minnesota Vikings. J.J. McCarthy, the rookie quarterback, admitted in an interview that the Vikings haven't explicitly told him he's QB1. Newsflash, Minnesota only has 2 quarterbacks on the roster, McCarthy and Brett Rippon, who has started a grand total of 4 games since entering the league in 2019. Great job sticking around in the league, Brett, but let's be real, this isn't a competition. So, if Rodgers is still weighing his options, could Minnesota be the real landing spot? Think about it. The Vikings are a better football team than the Steelers right now. They just spent over $100 million upgrading the offensive line. They have one of the best wide receivers in the game in Justin Jefferson. They have a dynamic playmaker in Jordan Addison. They have a top-tier tight end in T.J. Hawkinson. And, just for an added twist of fate, they now have Aaron Jones in the backfield. Familiar territory for Rodgers. Not to mention, they have a much-improved defense. So let's say Rodgers has a choice, Minnesota or Pittsburgh. Which situation is better? Which team is more equipped to win immediately? And what happens if Pittsburgh gets left without a chair in this game of quarterback musical chairs? Here's a wild thought. What if the Steelers pivot to trading for Will Levis? Yes, Will Levis. Not the most popular name, not a finished product. But at least he's not Brett Rippon. At least he started games. If Pittsburgh swings and misses on Rodgers, what's next? Stick with the status quo? Or take a gamble on a young and proven player with upside? This is where the Steelers find themselves. Do they risk everything on Rodgers, banking on a return to MVP form? Or do they search for an alternative? Because if Rodgers chooses Minnesota, Pittsburgh will be scrambling. And suddenly, all those meetings, all that interest, all those visions of Rodgers in black and gold, they could disappear overnight. And make no mistake, the Steelers cannot afford to stay in quarterback purgatory. They've been trapped there for too long. They need a game changer, a player who elevates them beyond being just another AFC playoff hopeful. If it's Rodgers, great. But if it's not, where do they turn? This situation is far from settled. And with each passing day, the pressure only builds.